Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 29th of July of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. First we're going to start with Crimea. Today the governor of this area, Vladimir Saldo, reported that not of the governor of Crimea but the governor of Kherson area. He reported that Ukrainians made a massive attempt of massive missile attack against the bridge that connected Crimea with the mainland, with Kherson district. He reported that Ukrainians used around 12 Storm Shadow missiles. All those missiles were shot down by the Russian air defense system, and probably the author of this video claims that on this video we can see the result of work of Russian air defense system, and that on this video we can see how the Russians managed to shot down Ukrainian Storm Shadow missile. We discussed approximately the same situation yesterday. If you remember, the Ukrainians during the previous 24 hours made massive missile attack against the south of Ukraine. There was a very heavy explosion in Taganrog. The Ukrainians were using S-200 missiles, and we discussed that probably the Ukrainians were planning to attack Rostov-on-Don. And also we assumed that Ukrainians would repeat their attack if they have Storm Shadow missiles, if they have possibility to do this. And today the Ukrainians repeated their attack, but as you can see, they changed their focus, they changed their direction, and they attacked the bridge. Probably the attack in direction of Rostov-on-Don was some kind of special operation with attempt to force the Russians to probably relocate their air defense system. But as you can see, the Russians haven't relocated, and at least haven't left this bridge without air defense. This is strategically important area, strategically important bridge that the Russians need to save. And we understand that Ukrainians will try to attack this bridge in the future because this is the only bridge that the Russians have to supply and support their forces in Zaporozhye, in strategically the most important bridgehead on the special military operation, at least during these days. Now we're moving to the situation on the ground, and first we're going to start our discussions with Kamyanskaya. From this area we got just one geolocated video, which we are going to use just the geolocation to understand whether the front line we show on the map is correct. On this video we see that the Russians discovered the Ukrainian positions, and after that, using artillery strikes, the Russians destroyed that Ukrainian position. This video is geolocated, and probably, as you can see, the front line is correct, at least on this part of the map. Now we're moving further to Orekhov bridgehead. Today we stopped receiving any videos from this bridgehead, neither from the Russians nor from the Ukrainian side. All the videos that we got today was the same videos of the previous days, but probably from another angle. The only thing we got is that Ukrainians on the northwestern flank of Robotyne were trying to implement some kind of evacuation operation. They were trying to evacuate from this area. The Russians managed to discover them and to destroy them. Probably this is another video of geolocation that we can use to correct the map and to show the real positions of the Ukrainians. Another video got from the, let's say, northeastern flank. This is the same, probably this is the video of the clashes that took place during the previous days. The Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian armored vehicle XA-180, and as a result of Lancet strike, the Russians destroyed that armored vehicle. We haven't received more videos from this area, so we understand that there is a small operational pause. The weather is very raining, so that's why neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians are able to use armored vehicles and tanks. And currently both sides are waiting for the better weather, and after that they will restart their offensive and defensive operations. Now we are moving to the Vremivka tactical bridgehead. Today we got a lot of updates from this territory. As soon as the Ukrainians managed to enter Staromayorsk from the north, and some sources reported that the Russians were forced to step back to the south, the Ukrainians captured that settlement completely, and after that the Ukrainians tried to dig in deeper in this area. And we know that if you want to dig in deeper, you need time and you need a very powerful and successful counter-artillery duels. The Ukrainians started bombing and shelling the Russian positions in the south, those artillery systems that the Russians were using for attacking the Ukrainians in Staromayorsk while they were trying to dig in deeper. On this video, we see a lot of artillery systems that were destroyed by the Ukrainians, at least 4 or 5 systems on those videos, and most of them are located to the south, and most of them the Russians were using to attack the Ukrainians. Furthermore, the Ukrainians published the video how they destroyed and attacked the Russian convoy in the south of that settlement. For now, it's very difficult to determine whether that convoy was leaving Staromayorsk or was trying to counterattack Staromayorsk from the south. Anyway, today, somewhere at 8 and starting at 8 p.m. of the local time, the Russian sources started reporting that the Russians launched significant counteroffensive operation to the south, and as a result of that operation, the Russians managed to capture a lot of Ukrainian soldiers, the Russians managed to destroy a lot of Ukrainian positions, armored vehicles, and basically, according to the Russian sources, the Ukrainians were forced to step back from that settlement in direction of Makarovka. And the Russians noted that as a main weapon, break the entire situation, was flamethrower systems. Basically, Staromayorsk was reduced to ruins by the Ukrainian artillery system during the previous 2 weeks, and there were no positions where the Ukrainians were able to hide. And when the Russians brought flamethrower systems, nothing left from the Ukrainian army that tried digging deeper in that settlement. Furthermore, we got 2 very interesting videos from the area between Novodarevka and Priutino. The first one shows that the Russians were bombing and shelling the Ukrainian positions on the north of Priutino. So basically, according to this our map, as you can see, maybe this map shows wrong combat line, because in this video the author of this video reported about the fact that the Russians managed to destroy the Ukrainian positions on the north of the settlement, and that means that as a result of fierce fightings that took the previous days, the Ukrainians managed to get as close as possible to the settlement. I will adjust the map before the next video. Furthermore, the Russian sources published probably the most interesting video of today. They're calling this video as a hero video. This is the old video of the beginning of June, when the Ukrainians just launched their first waves of a counteroffensive operation in direction of Novodarevka. And on this video, basically, we see how one Russian tank managed to destroy up to 8 armored vehicles of Ukrainian forces. He destroyed this Russian tank, destroyed 2 tanks, Ukrainian tanks, and up to 6 light vehicles of the Ukrainians. We have seen this video before, but from another angle. We've seen this video when the Russian drone was flying above that territory, above that sector, and a lot of armored vehicles were destroyed. And we thought, when we just saw this video just for the first time, that the Ukrainians entered on the minefields and were destroyed as a result of explosions of mines. But now we got more details, and we see that most of the Ukrainian armored vehicles were basically destroyed by the Russian single tank. It's a very interesting video, and I believe that it's worth to see this and to watch how one Russian tank managed to destroy the entire Ukrainian convoy. This is the Russian tank, this one. He was hiding behind the forest line, and basically Ukrainians didn't saw him. They didn't see him, and that was the thing that that tank used as a benefit, as the unexpected situation, and he basically destroyed the entire Ukrainian campaign, probably the entire Ukrainian platoon. The Minister of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of fierce fightings in the south area, in Zaporozhye and the South Donetsk area, the Ukrainians lost 70 soldiers. The total losses were around 135 soldiers, 8 armored vehicles, including 2 tanks, and 1 artillery system D-20. When talking just about Staromayorsk and Rozhaina, and the Russians reported that they repelled every single attack in that direction, the Ukrainians lost 70 soldiers and 4 armored vehicles. Now we are moving to Ugledar area, and let's say to South Donetsk area, because we also got a lot of updates from this territory, from this sector. There are no offensive operation from both sides, neither from the Russians nor from the Ukrainians, but there is a very powerful and active drone fight between the parties. The Ukrainians published the video how they continue bombing and shelling Mykolaiv. On this video we see how the Ukrainians managed to discover the Russian radar in this area, and after that the Ukrainians destroyed that radar with the drone, and the main forces that were bombing the Russian positions in that settlement was 72nd 72nd Mechanized Brigade with the icon of the school on the shield. Another video we got from the south, from the same brigade of that settlement. The Ukrainians managed to discover Russian positions, some armored vehicle that was hidden by the Russians between the trees. And after that, the Ukrainians managed to discover and to destroy. And that was not the only armored vehicle that the Russians lost as a result of attack of that 72nd Mechanized Brigade. Another light vehicle was attacked behind, probably was damaged, lost control, and after that stopped. But as you can see, the Russian soldiers managed to survive. They lost just the vehicle that was attacked by the Ukrainian drone of 72nd Mechanized Brigade. On this video, we see how the Ukrainians continue attacking and just basically was tried to destroy completely that light vehicle. The Russians from their side continue counter-artillery duels. They managed to discover and destroy the Ukrainian artillery system in the fields in the south of Kurakhova. The Ukrainians were trying to redeploy and to hide artillery system between the forest lines, between the trees, but the Russians managed to discover this armored vehicle long before it was redeployed. They managed to track this artillery system, and as a result of Russian artillery strike successful, they managed to destroy it. Furthermore, the Russians published another Lancet strike in this area. The Russians also, this video is geolocated. The Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian M777 howitzer that Ukrainians were using to support their forces in Ugledar direction, in Novomikhailivka direction, probably in Marinka direction. As you can see, this area is located in the center of all these bridgeheads. The Russians discovered that artillery system and destroyed. Also, yesterday there was another video published by the Russians. If you remember, a few days ago, the Ukrainians made offensive operation in direction of Mykolaiv, the settlement that they were bombing during the previous 24 hours with a small armored fields that included a few tanks and few armored personal carriers. And after the Ukrainians were defeated, the Russians took a decision not to risk and just bombed and destroyed and damaged those armored vehicles and reduced the Ukrainians' possibilities to evacuate these armored vehicles and probably to repair them. Now we're moving further to Donetsk sector, to Donetsk area. As you can see, according to the events, we've got almost nothing from this bridgehead. Just another video of Battle of Nivolska published by the Russian sources. The Russians discovered the Ukrainians' defense belt, and after that they started bombing and shelling this area. As you can see, a lot of probably 2 or 3 armored vehicles were destroyed as a result of artillery strikes. And as I understand, that was like rotation squads that Ukrainians brought to the combat line for rotation. The Russians managed to discover, to track them, and to just create a small ambush in this area. This is not the first video in the vicinity of Nivolska for this week. As you can see, we got 3 videos. We see some kind of activation from the Russian side. So as I see, this is something like artillery preparation, and I expect the activation of the Russians and another attempt of storming this settlement. Now we're moving further. We haven't received any updates from Avdiivka. Both sides, either the Russians and the Ukrainians, currently are trying to making some kind of regrouping. So we'll see what they're going to do next. We got probably the first video since this year in the vicinity of Novoselovska, published by the Ukrainian sources. This is, as I understand, this is not the first separate. Maybe it was not the 110th Brigade. So these 2 knives. Maybe even new brigade, I don't remember exactly. The Ukrainians managed to discover the Russian checkpoint, small stronghold, and after that they attacked that stronghold using the FVP drone. So the Russian, as you can see, was dancing, and after that he was punished for the dancings. Now we are moving to another hot point on the combat line of the special military operation. We're going to talk about Bakhmut. For today, we haven't received any updates, neither from the Dubovo-Vasilyevka, Berkhovka, Paraskoivka, Egidna area, Zaleznyanska area. We haven't received any video or photo confirmations from Klishevka. But today, mainly we continue receiving most of the updates from Andreevka bridgehead. And as I understand, based on the number of videos and geolocated videos and updates that we received from this front line, we understand that probably this is the most important area for the Ukrainians that they tried to penetrate and to cut this territory in two parts. And furthermore, this is the area where the Ukrainians are trying and planning to cross the railways that connects Kurdyumovka and Klishevka, and to establish their bridgehead on the Russian side, let's say, of these railways. The Ukrainians published the video. They managed to discover the Russian defense positions below, as you can see, the railways. So this is a very smart decision, smart solution. As you can see, the railways is a little bit above of the ground, and the Russians prepared a very powerful, significant defense line above the railways, under the railways, all over this area, and the Ukrainians were attacking those positions. And furthermore, we got another video how the Ukrainians at night, using the night vision equipment, were bombing and shelling this territory heavily. And if we will increase, and this video was published by the 3rd Assault Brigade, and today we have also another very interesting update from this bridgehead. Just after finishing with this video, we will discuss this, why this area currently is the most important for the Ukrainians. If we will increase the range of the updates that we received from this sector for a week, we see that Ukrainians are completely concentrated. We have the shellings of the railroad ways, we have from different angles, we have attacks upon the checkpoints, we have attacks at night, we have attacks with drone against Russian tanks, and so on. And today the Ukrainian sources who published this video, this one, reported that Ukrainians during these days took a decision to redeploy their special unit Kraken, this one, exactly to the south of Klishevka. And so basically now that offensive operation in direction of Klishevka, in direction of Andreevka, will be controlled and will be implemented by that special unit Kraken. We haven't received any updates about that unit probably for the last 6 months or maybe more. As we understand, this unit was restored, was fulfilled, probably past some kind of rotation period of time, and now these forces are redeployed exactly to the south of Ukraine, and now these forces are responsible for most of those attacks that took place in the vicinity of Andreevka. I expect that within the next 24-48 hours exactly these forces will restart their offensive operation in this direction. And currently the situation with Andreevka reminds me the situation with Staromayorska. First, the Ukrainians took a decision to reduce the settlement to ruins, and after that they will start offensive operation. The question is whether the Ukrainians are able to hold this territory when they enter, and when the Russians will start bombing this area in response. Furthermore, the Russians published the video how they attack a Ukrainian armored vehicle, probably personal carrier, who was heading somewhere in this direction. As a result of that attack, the Ukrainians lost armored vehicle, and this vehicle was destroyed somewhere among the fields. Furthermore, the Ukrainians published a lot of video how they were trying to bomb and destroy the Russian supply vehicles, for example, and artillery systems, of course. On this video, we see how the Ukrainians managed to discover the drone forces, some drone unit. The Ukrainians managed to discover the Russian Sao Gvozdika, and as a result of drone attack, the Russians lost another artillery system, at least behind the Klishevka and Andreevka front lines. Furthermore, the Ukrainians managed to track and to discover and to destroy the Russian light vehicle, and as you can see in this video, the drone attack exactly in face of Russian soldier who was moving behind that car. And another vehicle was destroyed a little bit to the south, and on this video we see that the Ukrainians managed to discover the track that was redeploying or moving the munition, and very important munition, and as a result of that attack the Russians lost another ammo car, the truck with the munition. Now we are going to the northern flank, and from this area we see that the Russians are pretty successful and pretty active. The Ukrainians during the previous days and this day and today made few attempts to attack the Russian positions in Sakov and Seti. They were trying to attack the Russians from Razdolovka along the railroad ways in direction of Mykolaievka. All those attacks were repelled by the Russians, and the Ukrainians lost a lot of armored vehicles on the minefields. As a result of anti-tank missiles attacks, as a result of artillery strikes, as a result of just infantry battles and so on. For example, in this video we see if we will split this territory in two flanks, the western and the eastern. The Ukrainians was trying to attack the Russian from the western flank. They were trying to redeploy, and the Russians managed to discover them, and as a result of artillery strikes, like missile strikes, they managed to repel that attack and to destroy a lot of big number of Ukrainian forces. When talking about the western flank, the Ukrainians were defeated and were forced to step back towards Pazion, Fedorovka, Khromovka, and so on. So basically their attack was repelled. Another attack on the eastern flank was made from direction of Razdolovka to the south, in direction of Nikolaevsk, in direction of Russian trenches. The Russians also discovered those attacks, and as you can see, they start bombing and shelling this territory with the thermobaric missile rounds. They start bombing with artillery, the Ukrainian infantry, and as a result of that attack, the Ukrainians also were defeated and were forced to step back. So as we can see, the Russians, for now, they control the situation on the northern flank of Artyomovsk, and they're not giving even a chance to the Ukrainians to achieve any success in this area. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of fierce fightings on Donetsk front line, the Ukrainians lost 120 soldiers, 5 armored vehicles, and 1 artillery system. Well, of course, the level of losses is the lowest in comparison with the previous days, but currently we see just the position battle between the forces. During the previous 24 hours, we haven't received any updates from the 10th Mountain Assault Brigade of Ukraine and the Russian bridgehead on the west of Berestova. So as I understand, currently nothing happens there, or at least we're going to see videos a little bit later. The Ukrainians published just a video, and we are using this video just to clarify the border and geolocation, that they managed to discover the Russian trenches. I believe they saw those trenches, just they published that 54th Mechanized Brigade was bombing and shelling the Russian positions between those trenches on the west of oil refinery, just like geolocation video and the real episode of battle on this front line. Nothing special. Now we're moving to Liman front line. We got a lot of updates from this area. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of fierce fightings from Kremenaya to, let's say, Raigorodka, this is the lengths and the area of Liman front line, the Ukrainians lost 170 soldiers. And as you can see, in comparison with the Donetsk and South Donetsk areas, is the Zaporozhye area, the level of losses in this area is still very high and haven't been changed no matter the situation. That means that the Russians continue being very active in this area. The Ukrainians from their side published another video how they managed to discover the Russian positions in the forest. On this side, we're using this video just to show the real border, the real combat line in this area, that we are showing plus and minus the real information, the real piece of information. The Ukrainians managed to discover Russian rotation, the movements of Russian reconnaissance team, and after that they start bombing. As I understand, based on the video, nobody died and there were no even wounded, and the Russians managed to bypass this territory. Now we are moving to the northern area, and today we got a lot of very interesting updates. Today the Russians published the piece of information that they managed to capture the Swedish armored vehicle CV-90. If you remember, a few days ago the Russians published the video, probably that was on the 27th. Yes, on the 27th of July we published the video how the Russians managed to damage the Swedish the Sweden armored vehicle CV-90 using the anti-tank weapon. Just a little bit further he will be damaged, and now he was trying to attack the Russian positions, and after that but this armored vehicle wasn't destroyed. And just a few days later the Russians evacuation team managed to get this area and to capture that armored vehicle. The Russian sources are saying that probably and currently this is the most powerful and the most probably powerful, or how to say, maybe the most modern type of armored vehicles that Ukrainians yet used during the special military operation. There are a lot of modern technologies, there are a lot of interesting technologies that of course the Russians will discover, and they will try to improve their own weapon. When talking about the Karamazinovka bridgehead, the Russians reported, and the military blogger Ryber reported that the Russians during the previous days were trying to maintain the corridors, maintain the bridgehead, and to short the combat line. Currently, the Russians in this area is in defense state, and they expect the Ukrainian counter-offensive operation, but this is not like the strategical state that they're going to use for next weeks or months or so on. This is a small need to complete the regrouping, to complete the entire operational situation, to prepare bridgehead before the Ukrainian counter-offensive operation, because the Ukrainians, operation, let's say the Svatov operation, Svatov offensive operation started a week ago. So the Ukrainians, believe me, did have enough of time to complete regrouping, to send some reserves, some reinforcements to this area, and currently the Russians expect the Ukrainian counter-offensive operation. So for these purposes, the Russians are trying to dig in deeper, to create fortifications, trenches, and to be ready to meet the Ukrainian counter-offensive forces. And after that, the Russians will continue attacking to the west in direction of Oskol River. And furthermore, the Russians published another video from this area, how they managed to discover and to destroy the Ukrainian positions of the infantry in the forest a little bit to the northwest of that bridgehead. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of fierce fightings on the Kupiansk front line, the Ukrainians lost 20 soldiers and 3 armored vehicles. And almost the same situation when talking about Kherson direction. The Ukrainians, as a result of artillery duels, lost 20 soldiers and 2 armored vehicles. Furthermore, and probably also very important update, that these days Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, visited Artyomovsk bridgehead in this area. He was somewhere in the vicinity of Chasov Yar, and we know that if Zelensky visits some area, that means that soon something important, something big is going to happen. And so that's mean that probably the redeployment of special unit Kraken, very powerful unit, the visit of Zelensky means that Bakhmut, Artyomovsk is going to become the main Ukrainian direction of offensive operation for the next 2-3 weeks. And probably the Ukrainians will reduce their attempts to develop their offensive operation in the vicinity of Orekhov, because they were completely defeated and haven't even reached the main defense line. Probably the Ukrainians will continue some pushings and attacks in the direction of Rimivka tactical bridgehead. And as I understand, the Ukrainians will try to return Artyomovsk, because Zelensky visited and he pointed that currently this is the primary region, at least for him. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.